Thank you so much for joining us on this week's podcast of Next Gen Investors, where we take a deep dive into what's happened this past week, what's happening next week, and stock
and
picks
our last
all
week's
around.
stock picks and next week's stock picks.
Let's jump right in. My name's Warren.
And I'm Buffett.
So last week, I told you guys confidently to buy puts on Meta stock. And this guy sitting next to me, this clown over here, laughed at me when I said that. I said buy puts, he laughed at me. Go back and watch the video. He laughed at me. And you know what happened? Do you know what happened? You know what happened?
Yeah,
no, he doesn't know what happened. Okay? Meta stock went down 10%. And even though I didn't invest in it, because I told you guys in the disclaimer I wasn't going to because I don't like options, I guarantee you would have made like 25%. So next time I make a pick, I don't want you to be laughing, boy.
Okay, so the reason I was laughing is he literally just got lucky. There's no way to, if like people were able to know on whether stock would go up or down.
Okay, you know how I know that's not true?
Would be a joke.
Because everything I said in the pick came true. I said it would beat on most of the different
earnings and metrics.
Yeah, different metrics, but because of AI, the stock would go down because of their capex, and that's why it went down because of their capex. And I was right. Everything I said came true, and this guy still thinks I don't know what I'm talking about.
Okay, so my last week's stock pick was SoFi, and unfortunately, it went down 10% after earnings. They actually beat earnings, but the big thing that impacted their earnings was their tech platform, their Galileo platform. Basically went from 125 million in revenues last quarter to now 75 million. But that's
bad. What?
It's down 50% in a quarter.
No,
in
it's
3
not.
months.
You said 125 million to 75 million.
Yeah.
That's not 50%.
Okay, not 50.
Do you know how to do math?
That's like 30 to 40%
in one
in one quarter.
Do you know how to do math?
Okay, bro.
Just wanted to make sure.
Okay, but that really spooked investors a little bit. Long-term thesis still intact. I actually did buy a little bit after the earnings drop. I think that's really just a minimal part of the total revenue, and while another thing that the reason they fell is because they didn't raise guidance, but that was because they adjusted their target from assuming 2 rate cuts this year to now assuming 0. So if you really think about it, it's actually a good thing because they're expecting a worse environment, but still expected to perform the same. Now let's get into what happened this past week. So right on Monday, the Wall Street Journal released an article saying how internally OpenAI missed their user and revenue estimates. And that
keep in mind, it was internal.
So that really took AI stocks down as it was fears. But that was also, first of all, that was internal, nothing they said publicly. And on top of that was in 2025, and towards the end of 2025, we're already a quarter through this year, so I don't know why they're using that as so much of an impact, and they barely missed anything.
Yeah, and honestly, it kind of just proves that I think because there's so much anxiety regarding this AI revolution, then when one small thing, ticks investors off and sends them a signal that maybe things aren't just going so perfectly as they want it to seem, that it could really trigger the popping of this huge AI bubble that I discussed in the last video.
Yeah,
but
go check that out.
But I won't bring it up. Yeah. Also, there were a bunch of earnings as I discussed. Meta had earnings.
Microsoft.
Amazon.
Google. So we'll run through them really quick, right? All right. So Meta.
Honestly, besides for Meta, did not read about any of the other than.
Good thing Buffett actually pays attention to the markets.
I don't think anyone pays attention
Meta
to your stock picks, buddy.
Put up an astonishing 33% revenue growth, but AI capex really because the one interesting thing is all the other hyperscalers like Microsoft, Google, and Amazon all have cloud businesses where they rent out their AI GPUs, so it makes sense. But Meta's the only one where they're spending just as much, but they're not renting out any AI GPUs, and people are really wondering
Amazon's AWS, right?
AWS, Google Cloud, and Microsoft Azure. Meta doesn't have one, so they're not. All investors are wondering, what is Zuckerberg spending all this money on? So Microsoft also reported good earnings. Investors sold off a little bit because of AI capex. Amazon also kind of like Microsoft, but investors were a little happier with their earnings and they went up around 4%. And then Google was the big one this week. They rose over 10% after earnings, as their Google Cloud segment grew over 63% year over year, and their backlog exploded through the roof. So investors were like, okay, Google, you're raising capex, but we see incredible returns for you.
Yeah,
so it makes sense.
The investors want to see, like, okay, it's actually working. Like, the capex makes sense. They don't want to just see them using all this money regarding AI, but not seeing anything like really holding them in a position that shows it's worth the money.
Mm-hmm.
And when it does, in the scenario he just brought up, like, it makes sense. Okay, that's why it went up 10%. But in the Meta case, they're spending all the money, as you said, and nothing's really like happening. So that's why.
Yeah, investors don't know what he's spending the money on. Then we had Apple earnings. They were just good earnings. Nothing. It was actually Tim Cook's last quarter, so that was the only thing.
I hate that guy.
Okay. What's it called? And then we had some interesting. We had some memory players like SanDisk and Western Digital report. They actually reported astonishing, numbers, but investors still sold them off a little bit after earnings just because of the amount of hype and how much they've gone up in the past.
So now what's happening next week in the stock market? He'll say earnings, and I'm going to say the reports. So there's the job market data and the employment rate, and
All right, now for the earnings, we got companies.
He's just going to read off because it's hard to remember all of them.
We got like AMD, Palantir, Disney, Uber,
McDonald's,
Supermicro, McDonald's, Pfizer, PayPal, Kraft Heinz. The big ones I really think that
Obviously,
everyone's going to be watching are going to be AMD, Palantir, and actually Berkshire Hathaway reports over this weekend, so that will be interesting to see with their new CEO.
I don't think it's going to be interesting.
The new CEO is going to be reporting.
Yeah, but I think Palantir and AMD are going to be more important, especially because this guy last year always brags about how, look back last year, I had AMD. So this earnings will really prove whether it was a good pick. I mean, not really, but it's a good
Well, he's just
indicator.
being salty that he's not as good
No,
as
I'm not.
investors.
What happened last week? What happened last week?
You
What happened last
gambled
week?
on Meta earnings, so nothing really happened there. Yeah, just gambling on Meta earnings.
25%. It wasn't a gamble. It was in the bank. Everything I said went down. Also, we forgot to mention this in the last segment, but April of this year, we had the best month in the stock market since 2020.
Yeah.
Great job, everyone. Yeah. Elite. S&P's up to, I think around 7,300.
Yeah, somewhere around that range.
Pretty impressive. It's crazy because I know with certainty that a bubble is impending and it will pop soon. And when it does, this guy's always bragging about AMD. I'm going to be bragging about the 2026 bubble I called.
Which he does not put his money where his mouth is. Just remember that.
I don't like betting against the market.
Doesn't like that. So he's gonna lose just as much as us. Don't worry, guys.
No,
Don't worry.
when I think the market's gonna...
Oh my God! I totally forgot.
When I think the market's
Duolingo earnings this week. Monday
Oh my
after
gosh.
the close. I already know my stock pick this week. Guys, pay attention. Monday after you close. I don't know what. Why would you learn to listen to Palantir's earnings call when you can listen to Duolingo's? This stock will be rocketing next week.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, but mostly gentlemen because 99.4 of you guys are men. We saw that in the analytics. We have the greatest segment in the history of podcasting right here. The stock pick. Okay? I'm going to go first because we like to save best for last. And
Oh, yeah.
I'm very excited to see his presentation. Not his pick, but the presentation style. So, my pick is going to be an ETF, not a stock. Because honestly, usually when I pick a stock, I like to pick one that has earnings or something that might move the stock. But I don't like the earnings this week. And the big ones I might have done were Palantir and AMD. And AMD I'm not going to do just to spite this guy. And Palantir I'm not really hyped with. So I'm going to give you an ETF. I've done this in the past, but the ETF I'm going to do is called ARDI. Okay? It's a tech ETF made up of a bunch of stocks. And honestly, guys, the stock market isn't worth it. The ETF market is where it's at. Okay? You could go into 5 stocks and your account will boom, but you know what also could happen? You could lose all your money. That's why I think ETFs are a smarter play. Unless it's a lock, like this guy's Duolingo, which is definitely not a lock.
Duolingo rubric service now.
Don't listen to this guy, okay? Take already as your ETF for this week and play it safe. If the market goes up, it's going to go up more. If the market goes down, it's going to go down the same amount, okay? Just play it safe.
Alright, so this is my stock pick. Get ready. I've been hyped.
You know
I've
what?
been hyped.
I'm leaving.
You
I'm
can
not
leave.
even. I'm
I'll
leaving.
take the center stage. My stock pick this week is Duolingo stock. Okay? This stock is poised for immense upside. This stock has sold off so much, but no one's really seeing their platform is AI. So when AI gets better, their product just gets better.
AI isn't getting better.
They are gonna report. They're gonna go up so much. I can't even imagine. This is gonna be such a great week for Duolingo investors. I'm not even joking. Stay tuned. You could see my full thesis in another video, which I don't know what it's called. Thank you for joining me on Next Gen Investors.